Hello and welcome to On the Horizon. I'm your host, Sarah Kramer, with my co-host, Tiffany Dunn. We are joined by a familiar voice today, MJ Eraci. We are going to be talking about something a little bit different. They are both traveling to Africa in the next, MJ's leaving tomorrow and Tiffany's leaving the day after that on separate trips. So we are catching up with them before they leave to sort of answer those questions and really understand what the process has been like before they travel internationally. So hi, Tiffany and MJ. How
Hi.
are y'all
Hello.
doing and feeling?
Good.
Excited.
Typically, this is where I ask, tell us a little bit more about yourself, but I feel like we really know y'all so well. So tell us who you're traveling with and where you're going. Tiffany.
Okay. I am traveling to Rwanda and Kenya and taking this trip with my husband.
That's fun. MJ, what about you?
I am headed off returning to South Africa.
Oh, how many times have you been to South Africa?
This will be my fourth.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
that's amazing. Okay, so Tiffany, tell us a little bit about your itinerary and how you came about deciding your itinerary. I know yours is more of a personal trip, and MJ will talk about hers in a little bit. Hers is more of a business trip. So speak to us a little bit about where you're going and what your itinerary looks like.
Yeah, so my husband and I had talked about, I've been talking about going to Rwanda for a while now. It's actually a country I haven't been to in Africa. And we were planning to go in March. And that's, of course, when international travel kind of fell apart. So we thought this whole year it wasn't going to be possible. And then, as the year progressed and countries started opening up, we thought, hey, why not? Let's give it a try again. So we started putting the trip together for Rwanda, obviously wanting to include gorilla trekking and seeing the chimps and Nyungwe. And this is actually my husband's first safari. So that was the inspiration to add on Kenya as well and do the Masai Mara. So you can have, that sort of quintessential safari experience in East Africa.
Yeah, I did the same thing for my husband. He hadn't been on a safari trip, and so I combined Rwanda and Tanzania when I went, and it worked out really great. So, MJ, where are you staying, and what are you doing?
So as mentioned, this is more of a fam trip. So we'll be going to certain locations and lodges. One of our partners is offering, have put together this trip for it'll be a small group, about 6. And even though I have been to South Africa before, I'm going all the lodges I'm staying at, I actually haven't. So I'm beyond excited. I'm going to be in Johannesburg for 2 days, which I've been, and then Swallow and Sabi Sabi, and then to Ellerman House, which I've seen, but I haven't had the opportunity to stay. So I'm very excited. And then to Groot Boss, which has always been a place I've wanted to go. I haven't had the opportunity to stay there. So yeah.
Oh, that sounds like an amazing itinerary. Oh my goodness.
It is.
And Tiffany, what are some of the properties you're staying at?
So we are staying at Singida in Volcanoes National Park. We'll also be staying at one and only Nyungwe and seeing one and only Gorilla's Nest in Volcanoes, and also Bishop's House in Volcanoes National Park. So lots to see there. We'll be staying in Kigali on arrival. At the Serena, they have this wonderful program worked out for COVID testing on arrival. So that'll be fun. And then in Kenya, I'm super excited because it's very rare to get space at Giraffe Manor, but we actually got a night at Giraffe Manor thanks to not a lot of people traveling at the moment. So we'll be staying at Giraffe Manor and then Salah's Camp in the Mara and also on Gama Mara.
Both of y'all's trips sound amazing. I am so excited for y'all. So tell us also when you're going to be gone. So this is the first couple of days of December. So when are you leaving and when will you return?
So I'm leaving on Friday.
Yeah.
And we'll be back on the 9th.
The 4th. Okay.
Yes, the 4th through the 19th. So about 2 weeks.
Okay. And MJ, what about you?
I leave tomorrow, which is the 3rd, and then I fly back home on the 15th, so get home the 16th.
Okay. So speak to us a little about, from when you booked the trip. I know I had spoken to Tiffany the day she booked the trip, and there was just a lot of feelings about booking. And as a seasoned traveler, I think that, she was shocked, and correct me if I'm wrong, that she had these sort of feelings because travel has never been a source of anxiety at all for her. So speak to us, Tiffany, a little about how you were feeling once you booked your tickets for your flights and then finally got your itinerary together.
Yeah, I definitely experienced more emotions outside of just excitement than I usually do when booking a trip. I'm obviously a seasoned traveler working in the travel business, but it's a different time to travel now with all of the restrictions in place. And so once we booked our flights with miles. So just being able to even get flights with miles at the last minute like that was really exciting, for one. But then, also, I don't think I've mentioned this, but we just booked our trip like a couple of weeks ago. I'm still kind of finalizing last pieces to it. So it was all very last minute booking. But I booked those flights, and the next day I just felt obviously excited about the trip, but honestly overwhelmed. I felt overwhelmed by, all of the things that I had to figure out, when I had to get tested, how I was going to get tested. And, we've talked some too about kind of focusing on one country itineraries and how that simplifies a lot of the procedures in place currently. And of course, I had to choose a more complicated route and combine 2 countries. So that offered, its own set of challenges to figure out. And of course, that's what we do for other people. But I think when you're doing it for yourself, like, the pressure is on. And it's funny, I always joke that as working in the travel business, I'm the most terrible travel planner when it comes to my own trips. Yeah. I'm like totally comfortable with showing up somewhere with no plans, no idea what I'm doing. And that's just really not possible right now. So yeah. I had to be my own travel planner for once and actually be sure I was organized for this one. So.
Or those times where you're like, do I have a flight?
Yeah.
I've done that domestically a few times. I will admit. Yeah. Oh, did I ever book that? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. So MJ, when you found out that you were getting to go on this trip, how, what were you feeling? I know there's excitement in there, but I know it's just a different time. Yeah. So speak to us a little bit about how you felt.
So mine, I think it was just kind of final. I think I just booked kind of found out, was it like a week ago?
Yeah.
Finally, like, I don't even know what day it is anymore, but yeah. And then, I was trying to get flights and looking at flights and all that. I will say the flights were very cheap. I'm flying United, Lufthansa. I don't really think there's gonna be that many people on the Lufthansa plane from what I can see, but yeah, the rates were just unbelievably low. But yeah, there was that, oh, what am I doing? I'm leaving in a week. What am I, and again, then it's honestly the testing and finding where I can get it and how I'm in Chicago. So there's a lot of delays here. So I did 2 tests. I did one Monday, and then since I know a lot of our travelers are going to be, in different areas and stuff, I'm testing out that COVID consultants where you send it in. So I swabbed myself yesterday and overnighted it, and I was looking at the tracking this morning to make sure we got there.
It is like, and we'll
I should get that back tomorrow. But as of right now, I have not received a test back. So there's a little bit.
And we'll get into that a little bit. Before we do, speak about what each country requires as far as COVID testing. That's, different. If they need anything else, like a form other than, the normal declaration form. Speak to us, Tiffany, a little bit about Rwanda and Kenya and what they both need and how you're dealing with that.
Yeah, so I am a little bit lucky when combining the East African properties in that they do have a little bit more of a wide window of when you can get tested before travel. So that is helping simplify things a little bit for me. So for Kenya, you have to be tested 96 hours prior to your departure flight from home. So that's like 4 days. And then for Rwanda, it's actually 5 days. I kind of went in between that 96 and 72 hour mark for my testing. Because we booked our flights with miles, we are actually spending a night in Nairobi before going to Kigali to start the Rwanda portion of our trip. So I kind of had to factor in, it's possible that Rwanda might consider my departure as my departure from Kenya, not my departure from home. So, but with that little bit of extra time, it did work out. For Kenya, there is a government form that you have to fill out ahead of time. You submit it online. It asks some basic questions, health questions. You let them know that you've gotten your COVID test, and then they give you a QR code that you can print or just use on your mobile device when you enter the country. For right now, you can still get a visa on arrival in Kenya. That's changing come the beginning of January. You can still get it online. So we did ours online. It's just easier to have it already in place. Again, where I come into being a terrible planner for myself, I for whatever reason did all my visas and then forgot that there's an East Africa tourism visa. So I properly advised my husband to get the correct visa, but meanwhile got a few extra visas for myself. So
yeah, and for those of you who don't know, each country in this East African sort of union have their own visas, but if you're traveling to more than one, and I think it's Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya.
And Kenya, yeah.
If you're traveling to more than one of those, it may be more beneficial for you to buy this visa that allows you to go into all three of those countries, even if you're not visiting one. So that just depends on the countries that you're going to.
Yeah, and then the other thing too with Rwanda, as far as testing goes, so they don't have any specific health forms necessarily to fill out, but they do require the testing before you leave your home country. But then also when you arrive, they require you to stay in a hotel for 24 hours. You get tested, and your results are guaranteed within 24 hours. Our flight arrives super early in the morning, like 5:10 in the morning. So we're only spending one night in Kigali, but typically you would do 2 to allow for that 24-hour period at this time. And then they also require testing before at least 72 hours before going gorilla trekking. So because of that, we're doing gorilla trekking first thing. That'll be our very first full day in Volcanoes National Park, so that that first test will kind of qualify. And then they do a second test prior to your departure. And it's so impressively organized. You can get tested at pretty much any property. It's all included in your trip. You don't have to even think about it. So I've been super impressed with actually just how easy all of the on the ground, the most complicated thing I think is figuring out testing in my own home city. So
yeah. No, and I think that is a lot of people's worry, is that when they get there, will they even be able to get a test when they get there. So it has been really awesome to see how these countries have adapted and really catered to people coming into their country and keeping their own people safe as well. So MJ, tell us a little bit about South Africa's a different story. It just opened.
Yep.
Rwanda and Kenya have been open for quite some time. So they kind of have figured out the processes, whereas South Africa literally just opened a couple weeks ago. Yeah. So speak to us a little about the requirements that you need to get in, and then just the process that you've had to take to kind of fulfill all those requirements.
So there's a 72 hours before your departure.
So 3 days, okay.
Mm-hmm. But the other thing keeping in mind is, for example, I have a very long layover. So are they going to think my Frankfurt portion is? So that's kind of why I staggered the 2 tests, just to have a backup. Because even the airline, who will not guarantee, but I did speak to someone at United, and they said their documentation they said just to be safe, they've had that.
Yeah. So you had a test in a clinic, and then you did a home test, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm waiting on both those results.
Yes.
And you also have to, you have to download an app. It's the COVID Alert South Africa. So you're gonna have to download that. So that seems like a contract, a tracing app. So looking at it, I mean, I'm not live there yet, but that'll be interesting to see kind of what pops up. So I think it notifies if you're in a certain distance of someone who maybe have been reported with COVID.
Okay.
So that's but they have testing there. They just advise they are now have testing in the airport. So if, before your departure,
Oh, good.
like on your way out, I think it's like 6 hours or something before the departure, you can do that. They had different stages. I think they had like a 6 and a 12. So, but that they just launched. So it'll be kind of interesting to see, and also be interesting to see kind of how airport personnel deal with it, because they may not have had too many Americans going to South Africa yet.
Right.
So when they look at the rules and where you're coming from, it'll be interesting just to kind of go through that process when I connect through Frankfurt, and then when I do arrive in Johannesburg.
So yours is 72 hours COVID test and the app.
Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But you're just the logistics of it all. I see.
Yeah.
So I do feel like a follow-up is needed, because I do want to figure out how all this is, works out.
It will be interesting. I think it'll be interesting to see if South Africa adjusts their time frame.
Yeah.
On its flights, and kind of lines up more with what East Africa is doing, just because with a lot of the flights that are connecting and where you're coming from, the distance, that time is a little more difficult.
Well, and that is to say too, that East Africa was 72 hours and
then they went to 96,
their window. Yeah. So all that to say too, the CDC just released guidelines that exposure is shortened too. So all these things are positive in way of travel and how things are progressing, as we trudge along in this. Okay, so did MJ, did you quarantine? It's a holiday week, so did you quarantine beforehand for 2 weeks so that you?
Well, it wasn't quite 2 full 2 weeks, because I didn't know I was going fully. But like once I found out, I did, and like I canceled my Thanksgiving plans anyway, because that was kind of the guidance here in Illinois. But I was going to go to like someone in my pod, friends, and don't do with my family. It's fine.
Yeah. Tiffany, what about you?
So I have mostly quarantined for like the last 10 days or so. Well, honestly, really through all of this, I've been pretty careful and isolated, and that's easy to do when you work from home. But we did see my family for Thanksgiving outside. We had Thanksgiving meal outside. So yes, we did. So that we did see a miniature version of our family. It was not the whole family, but a few people. And my husband, for his job, has to work in an office, so he has not been able to, totally isolate, but can minimize his contact within his office with people. So yeah, we have both been doing that.
Is it required when you come back to the United States for you to get a COVID test on arrival? And if not, will you get one?
I will. So
I will get one.
Texas doesn't have any sort of requirement for quarantine at all upon when you return from a trip. But I don't know that we've mentioned this, but MJ and I obviously both live in different places, so our requirements are a little bit different. But personally, we will kind of self-isolate for 5 days after we get back, and then get tested at kind of that 5-day mark when we should be able. I don't know that I would typically get a test on return. I would probably just isolate for the 7 to 10 days, except for the fact that it kind of butts up onto Christmas. So we'll get tested before seeing any family or anything over Christmas.
Yeah. Right. So as we wrap things up, all this has been super helpful. And again, I just can't wait to hear about it when you get back. But what are you most excited about? I know, as travel planners, we're just used to traveling and being on the plane and not thinking much of it. And this, when someone tells you you can't do something, it's like, okay, I want to do it more. So what are you most excited about now that you're one day away from going? Tiffany, what are you most excited about?
I'm excited about, it's hard to narrow it down to just one thing. I mean, I'm just so excited to travel again internationally. I mean, we've taken some trips domestically this year, which have been really fun. But I also, it's been a couple of years since I've been to Africa, and Africa for a place, as a place really that's so special to me. And that, like, it's hard to explain. I think anyone who's been to Africa understands this, but like, it just rejuvenates your soul in a way that, like, there's not much that can do the same thing. And so I just feel like if there were ever a time that we were in need of this, just rejuvenation of life, like, this is the time for sure. This is the year that I think it'll be even so much more meaningful. And then, of course, it being my husband's first safari, I'm super excited for him to experience it too.
Right. MJ, what about you?
Pretty much very similar. I mean, in the sense that I haven't been on a plane since March. Yeah. So I mean, I always like getting on a long airplane, exciting, and but I'm pretty much packed already, which is not 100% normal. I'm usually pretty just, but I've already like laid out and all that. And then, just to be kind of in some wide open spaces. I think I need this more than I even know. And it'll probably be even more apparent when I get there. I can't wait for a nice sundowner.
Oh,
yes.
A sundowner in Africa. I mean, gosh, I probably missed that the most. There is nothing better. Well, I am super excited for y'all. Thank you so much for taking your time out today before you leave, and just share in the excitement and all the questions that have come up. I really appreciate you taking the time. So I hope y'all both have a really wonderful trip.
Thank you.
And that is all we have today. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook. Tiffany will be on there taking it over for her trip Step by Step Live. And then we'll catch up with her after, as well as MJ. So be sure that you're following our social channels at Ker Downey. There's no and in that. We would love to see you on there. So in January, when we get back, we will be doing a webinar on Rwanda. Tiffany will have just traveled there, but we're going to do a more all-encompassing webinar to learn more about that. So be sure to join us then. That is all we have for now. I really appreciate you coming on today. Stay safe. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.